Norfolk Southern CEO says he is deeply sorry for Ohio train derailment. The railroad chief executive testified that he was determined to make this right, but did not endorse bipartisan rail safety legislation or commit to paying for long-term damage. The chief executive of Norfolk Southern told Congress on Thursday that he was deeply sorry for the effects of the train derailment last month in East Palestine, Ohio, but stopped short of promising to pay for long-term damage to the community, as senators pressed him for answers about safety measures and the possible environmental consequences from the accident. Appearing before the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee about 5 weeks after one of his company's trains, carrying hazardous materials, skipped the tracks and ignited a fire, Alan H. Shaw, the chief executive, fielded questions from angry senators in both parties about how far Norfolk Southern was willing to go to improve rail safety and address the fallout from the disastrous derailment. "I am determined to make this right," said Mr. Shaw, whose apologetic tone turned defensive at times during the hearing as senators in both parties vented their concerns. "Norfolk Southern will clean the site safely, thoroughly, and with urgency. You have my personal commitment." But he declined to endorse bipartisan rail safety legislation introduced last week, which would strengthen notification and inspection requirements for trains carrying hazardous materials and increase fines for safety violations by rail carriers. It is unclear whether the bill will have enough support to make it through the closely divided Senate, where most major legislation needs 60 votes to advance, or the Republican-led House. Senator J.D. Vance, Republican of Ohio, criticized Mr. Shaw for his refusal to support legislation that would create stricter safety policies, noting that rail companies turned to the federal government last fall to settle a labor dispute that could have resulted in an economy-crippling strike. "You cannot ask the government to bail you out and then resist basic public safety," said Mr. Vance, who is leading the bipartisan legislation. Pressed by senators in both parties, Mr. Shaw also declined to commit to paying for long-term medical costs, healthcare, and economic damages from the derailment,